darkest night. He didn't mean to, but the American dream slipped through his hands and brought him to his end tonight. He hates his mind tonight. He can't do anything right, and all he sees is a pathetic life. He dreams of nothing. He's tired of losing. He's got no reason but doing life. Hope is coming down the track tonight to put an end to his misery. The 605. He hears a whistle, heart beats hard inside. He lays his head on that cold hard steel. The strangest feeling, like he wasn't alone that night. He felt the strong love of a distant light. Hope is coming down the tracks tonight to put an end to his misery. The 605. That's the story my daddy told me, how he met Jesus on the tracks that night. And 1 year later, he had a baby daughter. And on the tracks that night, he saved my life. Hope was coming down the track that night to put an end to his misery. 605. Hope was coming down the track that night to put an end to his misery. The 605. Life ain't perfect, but it's worth knowing. If you're still breathing, there's a reason why. If you're still breathing, there's a reason why.
Hello, and welcome to Christian Gifted. I'm your host for tonight's episode, Johnny, and tonight we have very special guest, singer-songwriter Heather Layne, and Nashville recording artist as well, Heather Layne and her husband Dennis. How are you two tonight?
Good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to CMAC, and I'm looking forward to seeing some performances later.
Thank you.
So like most great talents and artists, a lot of people want to know kind of their background. So Heather, could you let us know a little bit about your family, where you grew up, kind of your background?
Yeah, I grew up right here in the Central Valley, in the Lindsay, Porterville area. And I have a country background. When I was younger, I barrel raced. And as I got older, we traveled the rodeo circuit, trick riding and trick roping, things like that.
Big in the area, right?
Yeah.
So, I often ask myself this question sometimes, where I've ended up being in production and everything, but would you have ever have guessed you'd be in this spot today with your career and your art, your music?
Absolutely not. I always loved singing, but I got made fun of quite a bit growing up. So I actually quit singing for most of my 20s. And I was never brave enough to say, oh, I want to be a singer when I grow up. But when my life hit bottom and I turned my life over to God, that was really the first thing that God started putting on my heart, was you're supposed to be singing. And so when I was almost 30, that's when really all of this started.
Wow. Wow. So it's really amazing how he can turn around and bring you back to something you thought maybe you weren't meant to do, right?
Right.
And singing, that's great.
Yeah.
Just kind of exploring a little bit how you guys go maybe with your musicianship and your career. How often do you go on tours, actually, when you go around and perform?
We go about 4 or 5 times a year, and we go out usually for 2 to 3 weeks at a time.
Wow, okay, so it keeps you pretty busy, huh, on the road.
Yeah,
very
really
much.
busy.
Yeah, I'm sure it's nonstop, right?
Yeah.
Just
It
go.
feels that way, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, what does that exactly entail when you go on tour? What type of things do you do, and maybe what kind of people do you meet?
Well, we just pray that God would set our schedule, and it's amazing how he does that. And it'll start with one email or one phone call from somebody in Kansas or wherever it's at, and then it just kind of builds after that. And by the time our tour is ready to go, we've usually got about a day off in between a concert. So we'll go do a concert on a certain night of the week, and then we have a day off, and then we'll do another one, and then a day off. It's not always perfectly arranged like that, but pretty close. Yeah. And we're mostly invited to go to churches, and in particular Celebrate Recovery programs, which is a 12-step recovery program, but it's Christ-centered. It was started out of Saddleback Church in Saddleback, California, with Rick Warren.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah.
So it seems like it's a really nice supplement to worship and going to churches, is to have the music and really go through that program. Was there something in your childhood? This is for both of you, by the way. Was there something in your childhood that you feel prepared you to do what you're doing today? So, was there like a turning point or something? I know you mentioned earlier maybe the singing. You thought maybe you weren't going to do that, but is there anything else that really kind of inspired you to do what you do today?
God pretty much had to drag me up to the microphone, kicking and screaming, asking him to please find somebody else. You can ask my husband. I still tend to be the one that's like, oh no, I'll just be in the back. But really what prepared me to travel the most was trick riding and trick roping. I was in a group in Exeter, California called the Riata Ranch Cowboys. But we were girls, and we traveled all over the United States. And I have a twin sister, we're identical, and our place to ride was in the tack compartment of the horse trailer, which I probably shouldn't be saying that on television, but I'm sure it's highly illegal. But we got used to sort of toughing it out on the road, and it was tough. I mean, we would go into McDonald's, and we had 5 minutes to eat with 20 other girls that were also traveling the rodeo circuit. And, we just learned, when you fell off your horse, you got up, and you did a cartwheel, and you got back on. And when we travel, it's very difficult. It's harder than most people think it is. Your schedule's completely off. You wake up in the morning, you don't even remember what town you're in. And it's time to pack up and move because you've got another concert to get to that night or the next night. And you get really tired. And there's been times that I've wanted to just say, this is just a lot of trouble. I'm getting older and all this. And God reminds me it's worth it because we're out there, lives are being touched by the music that we're presenting, and God through it is touching them. And also, God reminds me, you were prepared for this. And I think about my rodeo days mainly.
Yeah.
So, how about you?
Well, probably what prepared me the most was all the mistakes I made in life. If you want to be completely honest, but yes and no to that. Grew up a Central Valley farm boy, basically, and up early, long hours, focus on a lot of hard work and concentration on getting the job done, and so endurance. I would say, I do all the driving at this point. We're self-contained. It's the two of us and our daughter, and I would say that when you drive tractor 12 hours a day out in the middle of nowhere in the hot blazing sun, somehow that prepares it to do longer road trips. So there's that aspect, but also a farmer's pretty stubborn too, and he's going to see through it. So as God's called us to go out, that stubbornness comes in a positive way to make sure we're going to get it done, because people, they love our music and they love our testimony and what we have to say about the things that has gone on in our lives that have helped us to grow and flourish in spite of our mistakes, because we all make them. And so I'd say that way was probably the biggest way that I was prepared
Wow.
for what we do.
I'm
And
sure even through all the trials and tribulations, it's always comforting to know that it's part of God's plan, and that's so it's always a nice reminder, right?
Yeah,
That's for sure.
exactly.
So what do you do? You've talked about being on the road, types of things you do, and some of your experiences, but what do you do for off time when you're off the road? Let's start with you.
Well, I have about 20 private vocal and guitar students who are mostly girls between age 9 and 18. And I book them around here at local restaurants and venues, the Fresno Fair, places like that, to give them a chance to sing. And I always say somebody gave me the stage once upon a time when I was not ready and I was not confident. So I try to do that. I try to give back and also just be a light and an influence, a positive influence in their life. And I also teach, I volunteer teach at a public school in Sanger Unified, Fairmont Elementary, and I have about 50 students at that school, and it's in the morning on Tuesdays when I teach over there. And then I'm also running the ministry in my off time, and my daughter homeschools, and I have 2 older boys who are in school.
Wow, so
Really
even when you're off the road, you still got, you're still busy, right? Well, how about you?
I manage farm property for a local packing house, which is about 20 minutes south of Fresno. So I supervise the field crews and manage the fruit, getting it picked and getting it in. So I'm still in farming, very active. We're not farming on our own anymore, but I work for another company that way, and so that keeps me busy. I'm on a worship team at a local church, playing a couple services per Sunday and Wednesday nights, playing drums there. So that's keeping me going. And then whatever projects we have, a lot of times I'll back up her students in the band that she puts together, playing drums for that, and trying to help run our home, and I don't know, just try to keep her sane, really.
There's always something to do, right?
Really busy.
So just kind of going down the line here with some of these questions, how are you, are you currently booking any concerts, and if so, where?
We're open to really anything as far as, especially churches go. We just had a concert at a church in Fresno, Cross Church, and it was on a Sunday morning, and the pastor booked us for both Sunday morning services. So yeah, we're always booking for anybody that feels moved to bring us in. And what I do typically in a concert is I'll sing a song and I'll talk about why I wrote it and what I was going through when I wrote the song. I wrote most of these songs in very broken moments in my life, and my life definitely has been that ash heap at one point. God definitely scooped me up, put me on a rock. It gave me a new identity and really a new name, just a new purpose in life. And we try to encourage other people to follow God and to seek out their purpose in Him, because we know that that's where the real joy is, the real meat in this life is not necessarily chasing, a pipe dream, but chasing God's dream for your life. So we just try to be an encouragement for people, and if they wanted to book a concert, they would just go to our website, heatherlayne.com, and contact us that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's if you follow God's plan, it seems like everything else kind of falls into place, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all these things
yeah, exactly.
shall be added unto you.
That's right. So just, I know you talked about, if you want to talk about a little bit about your album, and then I'd like to go into some of the roadblocks we were going to talk about, but what can you tell us about your new album that's out?
It's called Wanted. The title song is called Wanted also, and it's a song about a girl that feels like a throwaway, and most of her life she feels thrown away by her parents, she feels thrown away by men, she feels thrown away by the justice system. In this song, and in prison is where she has a dream that God, she actually has a dream that she hangs herself in this prison cell, and Jesus comes and takes her down and says, no, I want you. You're wanted. There's a reason that you're breathing, and you're important to me, and you're not done yet on this earth. So it's a really powerful song, and we're excited about the whole album. There's 7 songs on it, brand new songs. And anyway, did you have anything to add about the new album?
No, just exciting that new music keeps coming. She's written over 400 songs in her 10-year career so far. I say 10 years since she really picked it up seriously. And it's just amazing to watch the songs keep coming and coming and coming. And they're deep songs that touch on very, I would say, personal issues for most. Not everybody likes being transparent, but in recovery we learn to be very transparent, because that's how you really get to the deeper healing of your issues. And we all have our hurts, haps, and hang-ups. That's a quote from the program. But at the same time, God wants to heal those places. And people have, well, if we back up a little bit, when I was playing drums in the recovery band before we were even married, and she was writing these songs, I didn't really understand recovery music. I didn't know. I was new to it all, and it was impacting me, and I didn't understand why. But as I grew in the program and I grew in Christ and I understood the healing that was going on, I realized that song was like a vehicle to my healing. It was really, because especially if you love music. And so people really connect to her songs, and her soul and her heart and emotion, everything is into that song. So there's a lot of pain and brokenness, but somehow it gets through to people to reach out for the help they really need so they can live a fuller, happier, more abundant life like Christ came to give us. So
that's great.
It's really exciting that way.
Seems like a lot of hope infused in all the songs, and really gives people that second chance or second thought, maybe reevaluate themselves and change their lives. That's great. So moving on here, speaking of some of those personal experiences that people have, you've had, tell us about some of, getting a little bit more personal, some of your roadblocks in terms of preventing you from really keeping you from the destiny that God has had for you.
Well, when I was a teenager, I was in a severely abusive situation, and it was very detrimental to me. It was very traumatic. And what happens is when you're in an abusive relationship, you shut down, your heart shuts down, and your walls go up. And all of a sudden, that can become a roadblock to feeling and actually having compassion and things like that. And so for me, that was really the start of my roadblock, really, between finding what I was really supposed to do. I was valedictorian of my class, so I kind of thought that's what I was supposed to be doing, going to college. There's nothing wrong with that, and pursuing that. But I went for a few years and never figured out what I was supposed to do. So I really thank God. My life hit bottom in my late 20s, and I don't regret that at all. I thank the Lord that He allowed me to hit bottom so that I could look up and start asking for help and seeking a higher purpose, saying, why am I breathing? There has to be more to my life than just abuse and the ashes that came from that and the way my life was tore up. And there absolutely was. Like, I've never had a music lesson in my whole life.
Wow.
And I can't even tell you how I write songs. I can't read music notes, but I write music, and it's a God thing. So.
It's a gift from God. Right?
Yeah.
Amazing. How about you, Dennis? Would you mind sharing?
Sure. I had a lot of emotional trouble growing up at school and with teachers and with students and just in general, and it really hampered my self-confidence. And so to me, I would start to succeed at something, and I would wind up destroying it because I felt like either I didn't deserve it, or I couldn't handle it, or it just wasn't me. Because when you get picked on at school and stuff, you get labeled, and you tend to believe that lie, which is from the enemy, Satan himself. And we don't learn that till later when we grow up and we start walking with God. So I would say that really held me back for a long, long time through fear and anxiety, and just like, that's not me and I'm not worth it, and just let me be back, hiding out behind a tree or something, and we're driving a tractor in a field, really. That's, to be honest, to be alone as a child was really good for me when I'd be out in the fields, because nobody could pick on me, harass me, whatever. And when I was in school, I didn't have the kind of size I have today, and I didn't have the kind of confidence I have today. So I guess I was easy target, for guys to pick on me back then.
Gotcha.
And not being a top athlete or anything like that, you tend to get shoved aside or made fun of or whatever. And I let it get to me instead of looking at the giftings that God had given me as a child. I looked at what everybody else was doing, and if I didn't measure up, then I just looked at myself as not worth anything. So,
wow.
yeah.
Well, it's really great and inspiring to hear both of you kind of overcome those roadblocks and use God as to help you and make the music that you do and help others as well. I'm sure you touch a lot of people. So we're kind of running out of time here, but if we want to briefly touch upon the, I believe Amazing Grace is the next song you're going to be performing for us. So could you tell us a little bit about that song and what it means?
Sure. We go to prisons and rescue missions a lot, and this song is written about real lives that have been lived right here in the Central Valley. And it's a song about prostitution. It's a song about a lady named Grace. And it's written about 3 or 4 true stories that I put into one song. And the whole point of the song is that, you know, we all suffer from shame. Maybe we haven't walked that path of prostitution, but pretty much everybody I've talked to, there's something in their past that they want to hide or they're ashamed of, and when God brings it into the light, you know, oftentimes these ladies will ask me, what do I do with this? And I encourage them, you know what, put it on the cross. You know, Jesus died on the cross for that shame right there. You don't have to carry that anymore. And sometimes it's hard to verbalize that to people. And so one day I was sitting in my music room, and this song just started rolling off my pen. And it was true. It was these stories that I'd heard, but it was amazing me as I wrote it that, wow, I mean, the song just epitomizes at our worst is when God comes and says, I love you and you're worth something. It's not when we're all pretty and cleaned up necessarily. That's what he did in my life, and that's what he does for so many people out there.
Exactly.
That's what it's about.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to hear it, and here is Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, she's on the bus now, headed downtown to take her place. Know that face behind the beauty, she's so lonely and wants a change. She's just 18. The boys are waiting, and they're wanting some amazing grace. And she'll go with a smile, but all the while she'll be crying inside. An amazing grace, I hear her praying for someone to take her place. An amazing grace, she came from nothing, just wants to be something. Amazing grace. And then one night, things got crazy. She was fighting for her life, and in a drunken rage, oh, he tried. But on that night, she killed a man. An amazing grace, I hear her praying for someone to take her place. An amazing grace, she came from nothing, just wants to be something. Amazing grace. Now locked away, she cries. She's so sorry. What a wasted life. Until that day, a man with a Bible told her about the one who took